So good afternoon to all. So once again, a warm welcome to you all for day 2, session 6 of AIST sponsored Atal Faculty Development Program on Design Thinking, organized by Department of Mechanical Engineering, Sri Manokkavan Engineering College. Now I invite Dr. L. Saravanan, Associate Professor, Department of Mechanical Engineering, to introduce our speaker, Dr. K. Ganesan, sir.
Yeah, very good afternoon to all. First of all, I would like to thank the college management, respected Director cum Principal, Dr. V.S.K. Venkatachalapati, sir, and beloved HOD and Dean Research, Dr. K. Velmurugan, sir, for this opportunity. It is my pleasure to introduce Professor Dr. K. Ganesan to the August gathering. Dr. K. Ganesan is presently working in VIT, Vellore, as a professor, higher academic grade. Sir is holding a BSc and MSc degree in physics. He did his doctoral research in theoretical physics and postdoctorate in applied mathematics. He served as a research associate after his PhD for 1 year. He had started an NIET center and been an entrepreneur for 2.5 years. Before joining VIT, he served as head of IT department at Aruna Engineering College, Tiruvannamalai for 3 years. He joined VIT in 2002. During his tenure in VIT, he had been Dean of Information Technology and Engineering School for 1 year. During this period, he was instrumental in designing new state-of-art curriculum and in setting up 6 labs in collaboration with industries such as IBM, Delphi, etc. He also served as director of the TIFAC Center in the core area of automotive infotronics for 11 years. He had obtained research grants from government funding agencies such as AICT, TEPP, TIFAC, DRDO, NPOL, DST, etc. and had completed 25 industrial consultancy projects. He had filed 25 patents so far, along with the student inventors. The granted with an US patent in 2014 for in-vehicle networking-based services. Sir has published more than 15 research papers in reputed journals by publishers like Elsevier, Springer, CRC, Press, Taylor and Francis, etc. The 5 scholars were awarded PhD under his guidance. His first external part-time scholar, Mrs. P. Mahalakshmi, was awarded with the best PhD thesis of the country in 2013. He had visited 15 countries, including USA, UK, Germany, Spain, Malaysia, and Singapore. During his visits, he had been to several reputed universities and industries and startups. He had conducted nearly 350 training programs for industry people, faculty, and students. With this brief introduction, I now request Dr. K. Ganesan to address the gathering. Please, sir.
Thank you. Thank you, Saravanan, for your nice words. And I think, first of all, I would like to thank the organizer for requesting me to give a presentation in this interesting, topic of, design thinking. Even though I was giving, lectures on different areas, probably, this is the first time I'm giving a talk in the area of, design thinking. And then I have gone through the internet and then I found what the people are doing in design thinking. To my surprise, I was a little surprised that most of our, work which we have been doing, we were applying design thinking. So without knowing design thinking, we were, applying. Now it has given me a better, understanding how to even apply the design thinking in a beneficial way to solve the real-time problems. So I hope that during the next 1.5 hours, we may interact more with, solving real-time problems using, design thinking approach. Is my slide is visible for all?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
Fine. Maybe, in between, I may be also showing a few videos. This is being a post-lunch session. I deliberately take whenever somebody asks which time you want, I always choose the afternoon session because I feel that a person who is able to attract the audience in his presentation during the afternoon, irrespective of what topic or subject you are teaching, I always feel that you are considered to be a better teacher. So I always prefer the afternoon session. So I know that you are all with the post lunch session maybe feeling a little bit drowsy. So I will make it with less technical, but more the live example or case studies. Maybe it is a kind of an experiential sharing I may be doing with you all people. So you can feel free if you have any doubts, you can note it down and then you can post it in the chat window, or at the end we can even discuss. So first, let me, I think, in the last few days, many of the other speakers might have introduced you. What do you mean by, design thinking? But then, for clarity, I am also, defining a few definitions and also my understanding of what is, design thinking. And then I'm going to pick some of these words which I have made in bold letters. And then I will take each one of them and then I will correlate with some of the case studies we have done in solving some real-time engineering problems. As many of our patents I was mentioning was done by my students along with me and my scholars. So I always feel that identifying a problem, right, is a very, very crucial one. So what I mean by design thinking. So one of the definition which I saw in the internet is saying it is an iterative approach to problem solving wherein people with a different perspective, knowledge, skills, and experience work together to create a practical solution for a real world problem. So I'm very happy with this definition because this definition is very clearly telling what are all the important components when you want to apply design thinking for problem solving. So the first and most important aspect is we need to identify real world problem. So in fact, when I ask any of my students, right, I don't encourage them to do a problem that can lead only a publication, because now, doing a research or making a publication is very easy, because all you need to do is, take convenient algorithm and convenient data, and then you use suitable metrics, and then I can always claim that my results are marginally better than over the others and so on. And then you can find some suitable journal and you can publish and so on. So, but at the end of the day, what happens is, what is your research has led to? Is it only a mere paper which has helped you for getting promotion and maybe, some accolades and so on? It should not be the case. So rather, we need to, when you do a research R&D, our motive should be identify real world problem. So go to your day-to-day life and identify a problem. And then you have to do a solution. And this solution should be practically, practically implementable. Because there are a lot of problems which I see that, students, when they come to me, they come with what I call as a fancy problem. When I say a fancy problem means it look as if, I am using, I'm trying to solve a great problem and so on. For example, if I say, I'm now talking, right, using the microphone now, right? So you know that according to physics, the energy can be converted from the sound form into an electrical energy. So that is what is physics is saying. So when I am talking, I am making sound. So that can be converted into an electrical energy. Maybe I can store it in a battery, and then I can say that, I can come out with a mobile which it doesn't require as a battery. So this may look, very crazy or very, very interesting, but the problem is it is not practically implementable. According to science, it is possible. I can do a simulation and then I can do it. So practically, if you look at the amount of energy that I can convert, which is used from my sound energy into an electrical energy, is very feeble. So if I use that feeble energy for, maybe charging a battery, I may be able to get a very low power, which is of no use. So the real world problem, it's an interesting problem. We say, scientifically it is provable, but then it is practically is not a feasible solution. You can also see there are a humpty number of students I have seen. They were proposing that on the speed breaker, whenever vehicles are moving, so I can, use energy. I can do the conversion of energy when I do the braking. But then the amount of energy that you get for implementing these kind of systems are huge. But the practical utility value is very less. So this is first thing. And second is we should look at the problem from different angles. That's what I call different perspective. So if you are given a problem, you should not immediately, jump into a conclusion. We have to look at it from different aspects. Now I will be giving a lot of case studies where how we have taken the same problem, but then we try to solve it in different perspective or a different angle, and then we got interesting results. And when you are trying to solve the problem, you need to have something called a domain knowledge. For example, when I work on, let us say, artificial intelligence, and then if I am working in the area of deep learning, so I should know what do you mean by machine learning and what do you mean by let us say neural networks, and what do you mean by maybe an image processing. So unless otherwise I have this basic knowledge, if I use like a black box, simply drag and drop, or use some ready-made code and then give an input and take an output, I'm not going to solve a problem which is of real-time nature. And then also you need to have certain skills. For example, when I want to work in artificial intelligence, you know that it requires a lot of skills like programming. So do you have a coding skill, and do you have the idea of doing data analysis? So all those kind of skills you need to acquire, and also you need to have a good amount of experience. So then it will lead into a better design thinking approach for solving a live problem. So this is one definition. Maybe if you look at the definition of Stanford University, what it is saying is that a design thinking should have human desire. So that means somebody has to ask for it. In fact, I will show you that during this corona period, right, what kind of problem we have identified and who has asked this, and then why we are supposed to solve, and so on. And then you need to see it is technologically feasible. So I may need to be able to solve this problem using technology. For example, if you simply say that there is an Earth at like 1 light year away, which is similar to the Earth, where there is a likelihood of human being possible. So now the question is, can I create an aircraft that can take me in 1 year? Maybe when I say when it is 1 light year, I have to travel at the speed of light, which is practically not possible. So technologically, with the available facility, it is not possible. And also it should be business wise viable. So that means if I give it to this problem, will there be any company which can commercialize it and then they can make profit? So unless you have these three things in mind, solving any problem for the sake of solving is not going to give any dividends. So you should think somebody wants, and also it is useful for somebody, and technologically it is possible, and also some business people can use it. So these three should be your mantra when you select any design problem in engineering, right? So let me take a very simple case study which we have seen some time back, right? So one of the issues you see that when you are driving your vehicle, right, and especially if you are a new driver, and you have learned driving very recently, so the typical problem you will be facing is like multitasking. You have to press the clutch and then change the gear, and also sometime you need to steer. So doing this multitasking always takes or requires lot of experience. So having said, what happens is, if you want to because of this difficulty, if you look at many of the people who are learning any driving, initially what they will do is they may go at only first or second gear, but they may go even, they accelerate, and then they may go even up to 50-60 kilometers per hour and so on. So if you look at the fuel efficiency, if you want to improve when you are driving any four-wheeler, is that if you are operating less than 10 kilometers, you should use or engage first gear. 20 means second gear, 30 means third gear, 40 means fourth gear. 50 means fifth gear. Anything beyond 50 means you have to go in fifth gear. So many a time we see that for our convenience, we may going at around 60, but we may be going only in second gear. So as a result of it, what is going to happen is you are going to consume more petrol or diesel, and then the efficiency of your vehicle, running cost of your vehicle is going to be more. But then in the modern vehicles now, what happens is people are using relevant sensors, and then they find out what gear you are engaging and at what speed you are driving. So if there is a mismatch, it is going to give you an audio alert. So using this audio alert, you will come to know, oh God, I am going at a lower gear or maybe at a higher gear. Let me change the gear. So it is something called what I call as a driver assistance system, a system which you are building, which is going to assist the driver, right? Because he may be in a nervous or he may be even in unconsciously using a wrong gear for a wrong speed. So in order to solve this problem, right? So now there is a human desire. There were people, they were coming and telling, boss, this solution is there in the modern car, but I have a old car, maybe 10-year-old car. When I bought this technology was not there. This option was not there. So how do I solve this problem? So then we were looking at what kind of technological solution I can do it. And then when I build the system, if I give it to some third party, he should be in a position to sell it and then make it as a profit. So we came out with what is called as an add-on solution. So any old car you can take, and then what you see in the picture is a small metallic frame surrounding which I have placed an array of the infrared sensors, right? So you can see that you can imagine that there are two sides. So one you can treat it like an x-axis, and the other you can treat it as a y-axis. So typically it is like a graph. So now when I send a signal in parallel to all of these IR sensors, and then on the opposite side I am using a receiver. Similarly, opposite to this I am using a receiver. Opposite to x-axis there is a receiver. So whenever the light is transmitted from my given LED, and then it passes through the, let us say, the gear, right? If it is engaged in this particular location, I will know that that light will be obstructed by it. So as a result, the corresponding receiver sensor will not get the data. So by this arrangement, right, I will able to tell using this small grid of maybe about 10 to 15 LED arrays, which are mounted on a two-dimensional array, and then I fix this in a metallic frame. I am then just using a small battery, and then I can process with a small controller. I will able to come to know at what gear I am engaged. Of course, then using something called in-vehicle networking, you can tap at what speed you are going. And then once if these two informations are given to you, I will able to tell whether you are going with the right speed with the right gear or not. If not, I can give you an alert. So if you look at in this particular problem, we have used sensors and signal processing and then try to solve a real-time problem, particularly for a vehicle which is older, which wants the new feature what I have in my current car. I can't buy, sell the old car at a lower price and then pay a premium price and then implement this feature and so on. So if you look at this year, when we proposed this, and then some of my students they did, and then when we went into some of these companies, they were showing a lot of interest. In fact, some of these fellows they were trying to build it and then even started selling on it and so on. So here, if you look at in this particular problem, what we are looking at is there is a problem which a customer needs, and also I can technically design, and then somebody, if I give it, he can make it as a product and make money out of it. So that should be your main motto of any design thinking, problem solving, right? So now look at the same problem, right? Now I have proposed a problem where I mentioned I'm going to use a sensor which is an IR, and then I used signal processing, and then I can detect my position of my gear. Now the second approach in the next year, when we came and then we arrived that when we make all these wires, and then often these wires were getting loose connection. because it is in the gear system, when you move our hands and then the gears are moving and so on. You saw in the picture there were a lot of gears were there. So when I change my gears, often, we found that there were loose contacts has happened. So then, the problem came, we were discussing, can we even find a simple solution to address this problem? Again, it should be feasible, commercially viable, and so on. So now what we did was the same problem we took, instead of using signal processing, now we have used something called an image processing. So what we did was we mounted one camera above the gear, right? Maybe in the top of your car, rooftop of your car, facing the gearbox or gear stick. And then there is another camera which was focused towards your maybe your tachometer or speedometer. So now these two cameras were interfaced with a small microcontroller which was running on a battery. So what these cameras were doing, maybe the first camera which was facing the speedometer was always, the moment I cranked the engine, it was seeing what is the position of the needle. So from the position of the needle, if I do a calibration, I know that at what speed my vehicle is going on. So that data I got it. So that was given to my software or microcontroller program. On the other side, the camera which is again facing the gear stick, it was made to take a photograph, and in that photograph I divided the available area into a number of grid. So you know that when you use a gear, you move to the left and then go to the front. So in the XY graph in the image, your gear position, which is black in color, black knob, right, of the gear will be in the maybe in the top left. On the other hand, if I am using something like a fifth gear, I move to the right and then I will shift my gear to the bottom side. So that means if you look at in the image, the block bob of your gear will be now on the right hand side bottom. So that means if I am properly able to make a grid on the image which you acquired from the camera, I will able to tell what is the gear you have engaged. So once if you know that what is the gear you have engaged and what is the needle reading from the tachometer which other image has done, I will come to know that are we using the right gear in the right speed. If not, I can connect a small audio system that may be able to give me an alert that I'm going in the wrong gear. So when I'm correcting myself, I will be also learning. Somebody is as if teaching to me, and then I'm doing corrections. Second is I can also improve the fuel efficiency and so on. So this is also an alternative approach. So what was designed originally for signal processing, now I can solve it with an image processing. So this is what we call as different perspective of the same problem. The problem was identifying the right gear for the given speed of my vehicle. I have used to do different approaches, but still got the same output. But then, each one is using different technology, right? And as I mentioned, the gear position sensing has to alert the novice driver to engage the right gear for the right speed. That was my objective. I can meet it in both ways. Then comes, the other cases you might have seen. Now, if I want to detect the fire, I can also use a CCTV camera. And then if there is any fire, you know that whenever there is a fire, it slowly starts. And then after some time, when catches up, it becomes very aggressive. And then when it is becoming very aggressive, if you look at the color of the flame, it will be red in color. Maybe initially yellow, then it becomes red, then it becomes blue color and so on. So that means if you look at even the color of the image which has your CCTV camera has taken. So if I see that if there is any object which is getting fired, and then if I look at the characteristics of the fire on the video frames that I have acquired, I can able to detect whether there is a fire accident or not in your area, and then I can even trigger an alarm or call somebody for rectifying it and so on. So this is again a camera based approach. In fact, one of my students, he has built this product in one of the leading core companies, right? And the other way is, nowadays you see in our house there is something called a smoke detection sensor is there. which is again detecting when there is a flame or maybe even a fire. What it happens is it detects using the sensor, and a signal goes to the alarm, and then it is doing. It's again now signal processing based approach. So my job is to detect the fire and alert. So either I can use a sensor or I can use a camera. This again a different perspective of the same problem. Now, again, you can look at how much time people are spending time inside bathroom in manufacturing units. Okay, I will show you an interesting project which we did for a manufacturing company recently. The problem they have given is, uh, 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 just let me check this video is playing, then we will go back. Is this video is visible to you?
Yes, sir. Playing.
Okay. So now you see this is a leather manufacturing company located in Vaniambadi, where more than 3,000 people are working in this industry, and they are exporting the product. Now what they are doing is 90% of the employees are ladies, and then the problem with these ladies they are currently facing is, what you see is on the left hand side there is a bathroom. So they go to the bathroom and then they spend maybe half an hour, 1 hour, 45 minutes and come back. So they are not able to invigilate them what they are doing inside the bathroom. So the issue they have given us was, sir, already we are, you see that again I will play the video, and you can see that the people are right. So now we see that there is a RF card which they are wearing, like your ID card, and then there is a RF receiver, and they show a contactless RF receiver. Just like you are punching your attendance, they are also punching when they go inside. Again, when they come out, they are supposed to punch out. So based on this data, they were finding who are all spending more time in a given day inside the bathroom. But now what happened is, some of these employees, they have made a complaint that asking, you see somebody is coming out and then he is also punching out. So they were asking us, it is unfair asking an employee to punch when they are going for even, maybe for a bathroom and so on. And maybe the labor officer said, you have to remove the system immediately. We can't tolerate this. People are not happy with that. So then, they came to us and then they asked, sir, this is a problem. So how do we solve this problem? So what we have done is, okay, it's very simple, because I can't keep any device inside the bathroom, but I can keep, this is a corridor, right? And then what we did was, we kept one CCTV camera in the one side and the other CCTV camera on the other side. So, and then, we were tracking the people who were visiting this region. So what you see in the blue line region is the area which is close to your bathroom. And then what you see, the green box, is a person, right? And then we know that, using your video camera, I can find out your face. From the face, we were able to identify who is that employee. So now again, you see here, once again, I am playing it. So when somebody is, entering, right? Now we see there is a green bounding box. So when they enter, this is the first time I put the time slack. Now we see again second lady, when she was away, it was black in color. But the moment they come inside this region of interest, it is noting down that somebody is entering. After that, it is doing a timestamp. When they come out, again, when they reach or when they go out of this region, again, I take a timestamp. From these two timestamp data, I will come to know that who are all the people inside. Now we see this person is going out. Again, I am finding who is he, because because this person I am seeing only the back side of it. So that's why I keep the camera on either side. So all these are live data, right? As and when you walk through, you will immediately get a notification. The HR will get a notification wherein, they will say that, so and so was, or if you are spending, maybe more than 5 minutes. So immediately you will get a message saying that I noticed that you were there in the bathroom in the last 45 minutes. You are not in your cabin. So what are you doing now? So now again, if you look at the same problem. So now the other two problem you may think that I have created, but then now there is an existing problem. Now they are looking for from a different perspective. If I look at the problem in a different perspective, I can give this solution. In fact, when we implemented, we tested it in their premises. They were extremely happy, saying that this is really working for them. I'm sorry, I have. Okay, so now let me go into the other aspects of it. Okay, now when you create a problem, you should need to see that it's a practical solution for real world problem. So what I am showing you is our first US patent, which is also purchased by a US company. And I got this idea sometime in the year 2008 when I was traveling to my mother-in-law's house in Salem. I used to travel and help her in solving some task. She was old, so I was to help her. So I always used to go in the morning, and then I want to come back in the evening, and then do my duties for the next day. So the challenge, maybe in the year 2008, if you remember, not many people were even having mobile phones. If at all they had a mobile phone, they had a Nokia phone, which was not a smartphone. And we were not having many of the advanced features like camera, etc., what we see now. So in those days, the issues I was facing was after going in the morning, and then when I want to catch up the night train, it used to start from Salem around 9:30, and then it is supposed to reach my Vellore or Katpadi railway station around 2:35. But then thanks to our Indian Railway, they know how to make up their time and catch up their time and so on. So they will always come very late. Maybe when I reach Katpadi, it used to be around 3:30. Typically, a 1 hour delay was there because between Katpadi and Chennai, I know that they have to reach Chennai at 5 o'clock. So within 1.5 hour or 2 hours, they can manage the time. So there seems to be a considerable delay in the reaching time to Katpadi. So where is the challenge? The challenge was every time when I traveled, maybe once in a month, I found that I set an alarm at 2:30 and then get up. But then you see that till 3:30 I may not reach Vellore. And when I look at outside, it is all dark. Everybody is sleeping. I cannot even ask where I am and so on. Maybe many a time the train may be parked you know outside a village or somewhere away. So I don't know. Even in those uh, you know mobile devices, we didn't have a GPS and so on. So we were facing the typical problem of how do I know when can I reach Katpadi? How long it is going to take? Had I been known that it is going to take 1 more hour of extra time, I should have slept, peacefully. So as I'm not sleeping, properly for about an hour and watching near the window or doors, hoping that when my Vellore station is going to come, right, because of the cool air, etc., you get through the window, you lose your sleep. So that means when I come back my home, I was not able to sleep. So when I'm not able to sleep, the next day when I come to office, I was so tired, I was not making any productive work. So this was the typical problem I asked some of my students that can you build a device which can solve this problem? Because whenever I want to go to any place, and then if the train is coming late, let me not worry, let me sleep peacefully and so on. So in order to solve this problem, so what we typically did was we built an embedded hardware which essentially had a Wi-Fi module and a Bluetooth module and a GPS module. We fitted that module inside the compartment of every train train compartment. And then whenever a user enters into the train, suppose if I'm getting at Salem, and immediately I will switch on the Bluetooth of my mobile device. So it was able to communicate to the Bluetooth, which is fixed in the hardware device of your train garage. And then it did a handshaking, and we pushed a Java program wherein we asked, what is your destination? Now you are in Salem station. Now where do you want to get down? So if I select like, Katpadi, it will record it. And then there was a GPS unit which was tracking where the train is. For example, when you are 5 kilometers or so before the Vellore Katpadi station, this GPS was tracking my database and found who are all the customers or travelers who are going to Katpadi and what is their mobile number. So once if it is knowing that, because in a typical compartment, somebody may be going to Arakonam, somebody may be going to Chennai, somebody may be going into R card. We don't know, right? In many places, it may stop. So when I don't know that, it tracks from the preference I have given that where I am going to reach. So depending on that data, it was able to find out what are all our mobile numbers. Once if I get the mobile numbers, the system was able to send a signal, and this signal was finding one of the audio files which was there in your mobile, and then it was playing it. So the advantage here is only my mobile was vibrating, or I was hearing an audio song, so I can get up. I know that in the next 5 to 10 minutes my station is going to come. So even if the train is late for 3 hours 4 hours, I'm not going to compromise my sleep. So we practically implemented this and then even tested in the lab, and then we presented to a company. And when this company came and they said that it's a fantastic idea, we can use it not only in train, I can also use it in ship, or I can also use it in even big buses, garages, and so on. So they have purchased this patent and failed a royalty to us and so on. So the idea is here again, these two girls, they have worked for nearly about 1 year with me, and then we had lot of iterations. So in fact, in the year 2014, we went to the Southern Railway and met the general manager, and then he was very reluctant to give an appointment. But then we said, we give me only 5 minutes, we want to tell what we can do for you. But then what happened is, after seeing our presentation, he gave about 1 hour. At the end, he said that you have done a lot of, because in this patent, we have also used Wi-Fi. There are 30 new services we have provided. In fact, if you look at majority of the new services that you see in Indian Railway are part of our patent which we did. For example, like when you register your mobile number, and also if you mention some of your close relatives, and then whenever you cross a particular station, if you want to give an alert to them, you will find out. For example, my wife used to ask me whenever I come by train, she will be very worried where I am and am I all right or not. So even if I am sleeping, she used to call me, where are you now, where is the train, is it coming on time, all these details it was asking. So instead we have given these, as one of the features, we have given 30 features. One of the feature was, how do I give new services to the passengers, or even my relatives, friends, and even in the case of an accident, for people who are in the police station, hospital. So all those kind of services we have offered in this. So typically what happened is, and if you look at many features, I have seen what we currently see in our Indian Railways was the invention which we made as part of our product or real-time problem which we tried to solve way back in the year 2009. So now you have so many facilities. Now I don't need a hardware device. Whether you want Wi-Fi, Bluetooth, GPS, everything is there in the mobile. So the whole product I can design it, and then I can do it maybe within a month at present, at maybe like 1/10 of the cost what we did maybe 10 years before. So this is something which we should learn. When you have a design thinking, it will always help you to solve a practical problem. Okay. The other interesting problem I would like to share is, you need to have a knowledge. For example, if you are working in the automotive domain, right, and then if you want to solve certain problem related to automotive, you need to have a fairly good idea of the particular domain. So this is one of the project which we have given for a student who, for my master student, who successfully completed it. And of course, he was not getting any internship in the industry, and his communication was bad. He was not placed in the campus. So he came to me and told, Sir, this is my situation. Can you give me some interesting problem? So we gave this problem. But then I said, you need to have a fairly good understanding of the subject knowledge. He was. Then, when we gave this problem, ultimately when he completed, he got an off-campus interview, and then he was selected in the BMW car company. This again, he did somewhere around, I think, 2014, 15. So what was the problem we gave was, now we see this is a speedometer, right? And then on the left-hand side, what you see is the needle, right? At what speed your vehicle, let us say, is moving. Even many of the mid-range or low-range cars, you see only this analog needle is there. So depending upon at what speed you are accelerating, or your engine RPM, or with your wheel speed, the needle may be moving. So what we did was, we used something called a LabVIEW, which is like your MATLAB software, using which we designed some GUI, because this fellow was not good in coding. So we asked him to use LabVIEW. So typically we use some hardware device which was able to generate certain, signals. And these signals were passed via your in-vehicle networking, because when you are working inside a vehicle, you need to connect various components via network. So there was a controller, and this controller was given a signal, and this signal was able to send necessary current that can simulate as if you are going at 20 kilometer, 30 kilometer, 40 kilometer, and so on. So typically, what happens is, when you are going at around 20 kilometer per hour, so you may be accelerating your pedal at a particular rate. So at that time, you know that the amount of power that you drop from your engine is more. That's why your vehicle is going fast. So when you want your vehicle to go at a particular speed, it is all related to the power. So accordingly, here what happens is, I have given some signal which is taking the energy from the battery, and that energy is calibrated properly, that it may be, driving my needle to 20 degree and so on. So it may be even a low power signal, but I just want to simulate this. So the issue came here was, when some manufacturer made these, the speedometers, and then before fitting into the vehicle, the car walas want to test it. So when they were manually testing it, they were testing only for 5 random reading. So they may using the same setup. They will, send certain amount of power and ensure that the needle is moving 40 degree, 80 degree, 120 degree, like that, they have seen. And then manually somebody was seeing whether the reading, speedometer needle reading is, maybe 20, 40, 80 or so. So what is the input signal you have given for which the signal, I mean, the needle has moved, and according to your data sheet, and what is the reading I am seeing in my eye. They were, ticking. When all these were for 5 random reading, they were ticked, it was assumed that the speedometer is in pakka working condition and so on. But then if you look at, in a typical speedometer, you may be going anywhere between 0 kilometer per hour up to even say 180 kilometer per hour. So we are not testing for every single kilometer hours of speed whether the needle is properly moving it or not. So to solve this problem, what we did was, we made a hardware in loop, wherein, we did a program which will systematically send the signal, and that signal will ensure that you are testing these needle with a different input rating for maybe, let us say, every 2 degree. So that means 90 times we were able to test one speedometer. But every time when the needle was moving, I used a camera, and from that camera we took a picture, and then we found that what is the position of the needle. So from that position, I can know that at what speed the needle is now showing. So typically the whole thing was made automation. One line I am saying is, so I can just set up this hardware and take one unit which you are about to fit into my BMW car, and then put with this unit, and then switch on. Maybe in the next 5 minutes, you will see that this product is 100% pakka. So then, you can fit it into your vehicle. So the issue is, that the BMW cars are pretty expensive, and then any component which you put in inside, it need to be thoroughly tested. If I'm testing it only for 5 random reading, right, and then if there are defects, in fact they said the defects they were getting were 3%. After we have implemented this system, now the amount of defect they are doing has come down to less than 0.2%. So that means they found that, after fitting into the vehicle, the customers were not giving any complaint. So that means when there are no complaints, your product is said to be robust or reliable. That's where, people were thinking that I will have lot of, value for my product. Okay. And then this is another, recent work which we have been doing. And here, as I mentioned, if I want to solve any problem, you need to have necessary skills. So the skills that I am talking here is, like something called your coding skill. And what again we are doing it here, we are building an artificial intelligence data analysis automation tool, right? So maybe to make things very short, I will explain things in the subsequent slides. So if you want to work in artificial intelligence, one of the most important thing is you need to have huge amount of data. And then when you take huge amount of data, you need to process this data. For example, this is a project which we have done for a tier 2 company which is working with a Japanese car company. So the problem they have given was, I will fit an ordinary camera in my car, and then I will be driving on the road. And then when I am driving on the road, it should be able to tell me all the details. What I mean by all the details, number one, it should identify what are all the objects on this road. For example, you see there is a two-wheeler fellow, there is a car, and there is a bike, and there are buildings, a tree, and pole, road, all these things are there. So you need to narrate, as if when I talk in this case, it should tell in one shot what are all the objects are there. Okay. If I tell all these objects, the second thing is you need to tell which are all the objects which are moving, which are all the objects which are stationary. For example, if any object which is moving, if I am a driver, I need to be very cautious because, I may hit him or he may come and hit me. Whereas some objects, like you take a building or there may be a parked car, I need not worry too much about it because they are all stationary objects. Okay, after you are identifying a moving object, now you need to tell in which direction it is moving. Is it moving towards you or it is moving away from you? If it is moving away from you, you need not worry about too much, right? But if it is moving towards you, you need to be ultra cautious. You may need to apply brake and so on. So the next task is, the moving object and which direction they are moving, which direction they are moving. Okay, if they are assuming that they are coming towards you, that means moving towards you, the next question is you need to find out where they are, right? And in which angle they are coming towards me. Are they coming? Now we see that there is a two-wheeler fellow which is moving towards me, but he is in a different lane. So now we see that there are multiple lanes. I am going in a particular lane. So now I need to know in which lane the object is coming. So lane detection is another problem. And then after detecting the lane, assuming that he is in the same lane, and then this object is, close to me, then I need to know that, am I going to, if I don't do anything, what will happen? Because I need to ultimately steer, right? Maybe to the left or accelerate or decelerate. So these are the things you may be doing it in a typical vehicle, right? You may be using acceleration, or you may be doing braking, or you may be steering. So these are going to happen only based on the objects that you are seeing in front. And so now we need to know in what angle they are. Okay, I see that there is an object somewhere in front. It is maybe at about 20 degree from my vehicle. So what? So then you need to predict what is the speed with which that object is coming towards you. And then you make some prediction. Okay, if this fellow is coming at this particular speed and I am going at this particular speed, there is a possibility that I may hit on him. So I may need to steer or I may need to brake. So this is the fundamental logic of the driverless car. So if you want to design a driverless car, you need to know, identify objects, you need to track, you need to predict, etc. We need to do it. So unless we do it, we cannot able to design the system. So the biggest challenge in this company, when we talked, we found that was they do something called, they captured the video in live, and whatever I am showing it here, they were manually doing it. Imagine that there is a car here, I manually identify it, and then using a software they right click and then they will write all the properties. For example, here you say whether this vehicle is moving in my lane or left lane, right lane, whether it is in front or rear. All these, they were narrating by visually looking it and manually typing it and so on. So in fact, if you do, unless you do this properly and then use this data for training your model, you are not going to get a good artificial intelligence model. So in fact, when we talk to company like L&T, they were telling there were about 27 engineers are there in their AI team, which are working in this driverless car project. But under them, there are 2,400 employees who are doing this business of manually entering this data. So the biggest pain point in artificial intelligence related project is what we call narrating the data or annotating your data. Of course, there are tools. Again, somebody has to sit and then properly do it and so on. So then, we were asking ourselves, what if can I do an automation of it? So that's where, we built this whole tool for using Python from scratch. It may took around maybe an year, and maybe in all my, MTech students were involved. And then now the situation is so that if you take a video on Indian road, and then if you maybe, using your mobile camera or any camera fitted in our vehicle, and then come back, even if it is a 1 hour video, and give it to me, and then I will narrate what has happened in that video within 5 minutes. So that means we have built a tool. This tool is, like maybe 1,800 times faster than what a normal human being generally is doing it and so on. But in order to build this tool, you need to have not only the domain knowledge but also a good amount of coding skill. So as I mentioned, I used nearly 30 students of my PG who were involved in this single project for the last 1 year, and then I was able to come out with this particular tool. Okay, so this tool now it is going to go. What is going to happen is, now there are few companies, they are coming and asking us, sir, we are working in the automotive, we want to do this AI project. I came to know that you have a tool. At what cost you can give it to us and so on. So now the advantage is, once if you do a serious thinking at the design level itself, when you are creating a product, you can at a later stage sell it to multiple people. Okay, so this is something. And there is another one, you also need a bit of experience. So this is also another project which we did for DRDO, wherein this was also a kind of a project where they were challenging it. So they had, you see what you see on the left is the so-called what is called a SAR image. So this image is taken in the night time, maybe in the deep ocean. So all you see is nothing is there. There are few dots you can see, but there is nothing is there. So they were telling, you need to process this image, and then you need to tell us in this particular region how many vessels are there. When I say vessel, it can be a boat, it can be a ship, or it can be any medium level ship and so on. So they classify all of them and call it as a vessel. So in this, the challenge they were telling is, you need to use MATLAB programming. You should not use any code which is available in the internet. You have to build your own code, and it should run in a normal laptop. I don't want to use any high-end software or high-end hardware for this. So this was the requirement. Maybe we spent about a year, and then now we have built a tool. And what this tool will do is, because a SAR image, in one image, it will span maybe about 50 kilometers. So what you see is the image which is taken by the satellite, which is around 20,000, 30,000 kilometers from the Earth. From there, it has taken in the deep ocean, and that too in the night. And only you get a few speckles of light. From there, I need to know what kind of vehicles they are and where they are, which direction they are moving, and so on. So from scratch, we build. Of course, why we were able to build? Because when they were asking us, but they were seeing what kind of knowledge you have in image processing. So I sent my complete profile, my publication, my projects, and so on. So maybe they took about an year or two, sorry, a month or two. Then they said that even though you have not worked on satellite images, you have got the experience of working in automotive image processing based application. So with that confidence, they were able to give this problem. In fact, this problem was so successful. Now the DRDO is using all their engineers. We have given a manual and trained them. Many of their engineers, they are using it because they are saving a lot of money. Because once if a satellite image is coming, which is downloaded from the satellite, the next second they can push it into the slide and then it can solve it. It is only, not only it is because we use some sort of parallel processing technique, because nowadays your computers come with multiple cores, and then in each of these CPU you can do multi-threading coding and so on. So using the concepts of multi-threading and multi-core programming, we were able to parallelize, and then we were able to detect exactly where these vehicles were, where these vessels were there, and then are they maintaining a safe distance, and then in which direction they are moving, and what is the speed with which they are moving. All this kind of information we were able to decode and then give it to them. So essentially what is happening is, when we want to focus on design thinking over a period, you need to also gain some experience or expertise. Okay, I think these people might have told you in the last few days. There are 5 stages of design thinking according to the so-called D school, and they are called empathize, define, ideate, prototype, and test. It is not something very very different from what we generally do. If you go to an industry, if you start solving a problem, the very first thing is you need to see is what the design thinking approach is saying, that you need to look at empathize. Empathize means it is the first stage of design thinking, wherein we want to understand the problem, empathetically understand the problem. What I mean by empathetically understanding the problem means, so you should look at the problem from the user point of view. So you should not look at the problem according to your convenience. When somebody comes and tells a problem, you imagine as if you are there, and then what kind of problems you are facing. So this involves consulting experts to find about the area of concern through observing, engaging, and empathizing with people to understand their experiences and motivations, so that we can gain a deeper personal understanding of the issues involved. So all these keywords, I may talk little detail and some case studies, how it has, helped us. So the moment you get a problem, you need to have something called an experts, maybe within your university or outside your university. So you need to sit with an experts, and then you have to consult with them. So in fact, the next week, I am going to give a talk for the doctors, right, who are doing MBBS in CMC. They have invited me because we don't know what is artificial intelligence, how a doctor can solve an artificial intelligence problem. So now they are the experts in medicine, but they are not the experts in AI. Maybe I may be an expert in AI. So before I am solving a medical problem, I need to sit a medical expert, and then I have to discuss with them. And when you are doing this problem, you need to carefully observe, and then you have to make a engagement. When I say an engagement means, so even after this presentation, right, I'm going to have a meeting with the CMC people on a different project. So we are engaging with them. Whenever we make something, we discuss maybe for every 2 weeks, and then find out, am I going in the right direction or not. They have given the problem, but I am working on it, but I need to have a close engagement with them and to see that whether I'm going in the right direction or not. And also we need to understand their experiences and motivations and so on. Empathy allows the design thinkers to set aside their own assumptions about the world in order to gain insight into users and their needs. So what you should do is, you should not solve the problem according to your convenience, but you look at what the benefit my customer will get, what he is interested in. So depending on the time constraints, a substantial amount of information is gathered to use during the next stage. So I always say that this is the most important stage. You need to spend 30 to 40% of your time. When somebody gives you a problem, you should not immediately start working, whether it is PhD or consultancy or anything. You have to spend more time on the empathize stage, what others have been doing and what experts are telling, what is the problem given by the end user. All this you need to do it. So one of the case study I can tell you is, I remember about 2 3 years before, I think about 3 years before, the collector of Vellore, sent the RTO of Vellore district, who is still there, Mr. Ramakrishnan. He approached me and told, sir, the collector is telling Vellore is located between the national highway in between, Bangalore and, Chennai. So it so happens the traffic of the vehicles up to maybe, even Kanjipuram or Ranipeta is more. But the stretch between the Ranipeta to maybe, even Hosur or maybe up to Krishnagiri is very free. It is a 6 lane because already 6 lanes are there, and lot of people are going at a mad rush. And fortunately or unfortunately, lot of people, without seeing the roads on either side, they cross. Of course, it is a mistake of the people who are crossing the road. They are not seeing the vehicle on either side, and then they met with an accident. So every day there were lot of requests from the public that there are a lot of accidents are happening. Can you prevent this? So when we went there, and he came here and then discussed for about 2 hours and defined what is the problem. And then we had a deliberation with a lot of our experts. And then finally we called them and then we said, we will give you some solutions and so on. So when we were giving the solution, he was giving lot of his constraints. So the number one constraints, I said I can use some LiDAR, and which is used in US, and then you can install it in many places. When a vehicle passes through, it can send a signal, and from the reflected signal, I can find out at what speed he is going. So you can keep it in some secret location, and then you can detect, and then you can catch hold of them and so on. But then he said they are all expensive solution. I cannot, do it and so on. And then we said maybe we use some sort of RFID and so on. Of course, now they are using it, but at that point of time, he said, using an RFID reader at many places to find out the speed is not practically possible. So we came with a number of solutions. Finally, the RTO or the collector was telling, your solution should be very, very low cost and then implementable with at a lesser time. These are two constraints they have given. So we were understanding empathetically what they were doing it, and then what we did was we made a very simple solution. We went to two toll gates, assuming that what you see on the top is one of the toll gate, and then this is another toll gate. Assuming that you are coming from Bangalore, the first toll gate you may be crossing before Vellore is at Pallikonda. So assuming that the top one is a Pallikonda toll gate, so whenever you are crossing the Pallikonda toll gate, you may be paying a toll fee, right? When you pay a toll fee, you are given a date, time, and it is also in the receipt or in the database is there. So the moment you cross the toll gate, any vehicle which is passing the toll gate, we took a data and then we transferred into a cloud. We maintained an application in our cloud. This was simply, getting a data which is saying that from Pallikonda, such and such a vehicle, maybe you will get even the vehicle number, and this is the date and this is the time and so on. And then once the same vehicle, assuming that between Pallikonda and next at Ranipeta, we have around 40 kilometers, 49 kilometers, and we notice that a lot of people they will travel in 30 to 35 minutes, especially all BMW high-end cars and so on. And so when the same car, when it was crossing the Ranipeta toll gate, again he was making a toll payment. At that time I noticed what is his vehicle number and what is the date and time. Again I pushed this data into the cloud. So now again in my database I am tracking basically the vehicle when it crossed the Pallikonda and when it is crossed the toll gate of Ranipeta, and we know what is the distance. So if I know what is the time taken and by the distance, I can find out what is the average speed of the vehicle. And then you may be asking that somebody may go at over speed and then he may take a rest and then he may cross and so on. That's fine. But at least what the RTO was telling. The moment if you say that there is a system which is going to detect and then it is going to figure out people who are all over speeding, and then if I send a ticket or like a notification, they will immediately correct themselves and so on. So in fact when we were doing this testing, a lot of people who were working in the toll gate, They were, spreading the message to the outside people. And within 1 week, I got a WhatsApp message where they were telling, like they are going to implement a overspeed detection between Chennai and Bangalore. I request people not to go to, more than 100 kilometers, which is what is permitted. If you go, you will be caught and so on. So we didn't even implement it because we had other issues. How to take this data from, the multiple vendors, because the Pallikonda toll gate was run by a different, vendor, and the other toll gate in Ranipeta was maintained by a different vendor. They were not ready to share their details. But then we have given a different technique. How do you acquire the data? And then using My Student, we built an app which was able to push this data, and then we were able to demonstrate. But then there were issues in, negotiating with these vendors, that, they, and also they were using, different software. So the issues were not on technologically. In the business wise, now this is the case where you see that it was an empathetic problem. We analyzed it technologically, we gave a solution. But then when it came on a business perspective, had both the toll gates were operated by the same fellow, we should have, succeeded. But then they were operated by a different fellow. They were not ready to, cooperate with the, because these companies are reporting to the central government, so they are not ready to, cooperate with the, RTO of Vellore district and so on. But any of the RTO said he has, sent some spy vehicles, and they were going at over speed, and they were finding whether our software is able to detect it or not. In fact, when we gave a report, he was extremely happy that, whatever vehicle, because he hired a few professional, drivers, asked them to go at 120, 140 between these, period. We never know that. But after that, he came and told that, we were able to validate your, findings by, verifying with our professional drivers and so on. So this an empathetic understanding of a problem is always, very, very important. Then the second stage is, during this define stage, we will analyze our observations and synthesize them to define the core problems that we have identified up to this point. So what you do is, we need to analyze, and then you can define how you can solve this problem. The define stage will help the designers in our team to gather great ideas to establish features, functions, and any other elements which will help them to solve the problem. So once if you empathize the problem, what happened to is, you need to define the problem. In this stage, you need to gather a lot of information, and then you need to know what kind of features, what kind of tools you will use, what kind of hardware you will use, what kind of software you will use, what is the cost involved. All those, you need to do it. For example, this again, maybe an interesting project which we have built using, again AI, but now the AI used for creating something called chatbot. So what is the chatbot? A chat, because if you define a problem, once if you successfully deploy this problem can be applied to many other disciplines. For example, chatbots are voice interactive systems and are likely to replace, receptionist job. So what is the chatbot? All your Alexa, Google Home, all these, give you a voice command, and then it is doing the task, whatever you are telling it to. So it basically consists of a microphone based hardware, wherein the user's natural queries are converted into a text. And then the text is, subjected to something called a natural language query. And we use, the natural language processing techniques to remove unwanted elements in our query. For example, whenever I am talking to somebody, the basic is that you need not use, idioms and phrases, or I need not use even grammar. For example, according to the grammar, the present tense after he walks nicely. That means you need to add a yes after the verb. But then if somebody is saying he walked nicely, he is making a grammar mistake. When he is talking, are we finding, as if it is a grave mistake and then disqualifying him, so on? No. In reality, what happens is, many of us, we are not talking the grammatical English or grammatical local language, whatever you have. We used to talk in vernacular language. So we are using our own, words. For example, when you use present tense, past tense, future tense, it doesn't matter even if you make mistakes. So sometimes I say walk, walking, walked, all are, say, having something called the base word, which is walk. So people, when we listen only the keywords or what we call base words. So based on the base words, if you are creating something called a contextualization, it is possible for us to understand what are you trying to convey, right? So this is the logic of what we call, NLP or chatbot. Because if you want to talk what is an NLP and chatbot, we can talk for an hour and so on. But the typical challenge here when I use artificial intelligence is here, different variants of the same query are grouped into the same category. For example, when I say when I am talking to somebody for the same requirement, I may be expressing in different words. For example, I may ask how to reach Vellore. Somebody say, I want to go to Vellore. Can you tell me what I should do? If you look at both the question, the intent is the same. The fellow wants to go to Vellore. He is looking for some help. So, like that, if you take any problem or any context, the same context people can express in multiple ways. Again, you need to do this is something called the kind of frequently asked questions. When somebody is talking to each other, if you are a receptionist, assuming that if I am creating a chatbot which is kept in the reception at my maybe what I call admission department, right? So you know that any faculty, or sorry, any student or any parent, they walk in after 1 week or 10 days, you will know that they will ask only these 10 type of questions. They may ask, when are you going to start the college? What is the fees? How good the faculties are? Is the syllabus is state of art? What is the placement? What is the average salary? So all these standard questions they may ask, but each question may be asked by different ways by different people. So what you should do is you need to gather this information, and then from there you need to get the base words. By contextualizing these base words, you will able to interpret if these kind of words are connected, then I can assume that he is looking for this kind of information. So once if you know that information, then immediately you can store these data in your database, and you train. Basically it is a text data. Sometimes it can be even a speech data which is converted into a text data. But once if you have stored, and then if you have trained, if this model is built, after you have built that model, what happens is you can use it anywhere you like. For example, I may be playing this small video which was built for our DRDO project. I have shown you the DRDO project, and then the issue I was facing is, once I want to send my people, you go to an exhibition and you present what is this project is all about. But then they said, sir, the concerned person, the research scholar who worked, he was not there, so he was on leave. The other person, he said, sir, I don't know about this project, what I can tell? If I go to this exhibition, some expert comes, and then if I ask some questions which is tricky, if I'm not able to answer, it may look embarrassing and so on. But then I said, most of the people will be asking the similar kind of question, you can manage. He was not willing. So finally we decided, okay, can we build a bot which can uh, solve this problem? So maybe you can watch this video. So it may look like as if I am using a text to speech for reading it, but I'm just showing is this is the first content we have trained. So now we see that I have trained it. So now you see what we have shown you is the case where some of the questions it was not able to answer because we have not trained it with the necessary data. So what I shown in the, actually there is no screen is required. If I go and then just, like if you have a chart and then something is written, somebody is looking at, and then he is asking you the question. So this question is captured using your Alexa device. So whatever you see in the Alexa, which you are seeing is, it is going to the cloud, and then, somebody in the internet, it is pooling, and then it is giving you the information and so on. But what we have built is an Alexa which is custom made for my need, for my project, for my application. So that, I can even nowadays remove this Alexa and then I can host it in a server. It can even work for it. But nowadays, the device is so small, which has got, for 5,000 rupees, I'm getting a fantastic, text to speech, speech to text, which has got a microphone. I can connect with the speaker and so on. So the reason why we have used this Alexa device is not technically to use the Alexa engine, but then without even using Alexa engine, it is possible for us to, process this. So now you can imagine that if it is a hospital, when somebody comes and then asks, I don't need a receptionist. Or if you are in a center where you are, like what we call BPO center. So in the near future, you are going to see that the BPOs are going to be replaced with this kind of, bots. So that means, when you look at, you define your problem in a very abstract way. You should not think a problem which is a specific one. So if I am able to define a problem in an abstract way, then you can apply this problem into multiple domains. That is one advantage here. Then the next stage is something called ideate stage. In this stage, the designers are ready to start generating ideas, and here we can start to think outside the box to identify new solutions to the problem statement, and we can even start to look for alternative ways of viewing the problem. So I already mentioned your problem should not be like a surprise, right? And then whenever you see something which is very different from others are doing, you always see a wow. So that wow is what we call as think outside the box. Don't try the conventional problem. And in fact, you can also for that look at the problem in different angle. There are hundreds of ideation techniques such as brainstorm, brainwrite, worst possible idea, and scammer are there. To be frank, I have not used any of these tools. I'm not an expert in it, but you can try. So one has to get as many ideas or problem solution as possible at the beginning of the ideation phase. So the key point is that in the beginning itself, you need to get more and more, problems in your mind. Maybe, I will just skip some of them for want of time. Maybe I will give you some other case study, which is very interesting for each one of you. And then also you can concentrate after doing that. You have got multiple ideas. You can freeze, evaluate which is the best, and then you can go for a prototype testing. So when I say a prototype testing is many of the hardware which we built in the lab and tested inside the lab is what I call as a prototype test. So once if you do that prototype, testing, then what you do is you can go to the real time customer place. You go to a particular industry and then you test it and ask them to give a feedback how good or how bad it is and what kind of alteration they should make. And that is your fifth stage. This is some hardware and okay. And in many of these thinking is they are non-linear in nature. So what I mean by iterative means you can identify the problem, define and find various solutions, fix one of them and build a prototype, test in a customer site. All this you have to do not one by one. You can do it in parallel. So you may be wondering that how do I do? I mean, not all problems I can do it in one shot. I can do one by one only. For example, in an assembly unit in an automotive manufacturing company, first you need to have you need to you can go one by one, right? Maybe you take a chassis and then you fit a wheel, then you will fit a steering, then you will fit the body, then you will do the painting and so on. So like that it goes stage by stage. Whereas in many design thinking problem, it is also possible to do tasks in parallel. So you need to identify what are the tasks that I can do in parallel. That's what is nonlinear nature. That is very difficult, but then we have to see that how it is going to happen. and maybe to make you to think. I am throwing some problem which I came across a few days before. During this pandemic time, our children, or even you are taking classes through online. They are studying maybe in college or schools, but they are attending classes through online. What is the problem in this is, at times these classes are boring, and then they want to skip the class. In case if they miss the class, then their attendance will be a problem. I am sure that many of you may be even attending this program. You might have even switched on because you want only a certificate from the organizer. You may not even attend for various reasons. So even in that case, right, I want to have an attendance. So now if you imagine, what if a bot is created to attend our class? So you may be thinking, I may be joking. In fact, this is a open source software which is created by one of the ethical hacker, right? So I am teaching the subject on cyber security. I am teaching the student, how to ethically hack systems and so on. So when I when I was teaching, I come across this, a simple tool, and then this tool you can download it, and then you can host it in the website. All you need to do is you can create a bot which can attend all your classes every day as per your timetable. So I'm going to give you my timetable. I will give you my Zoom or maybe Microsoft Team login credential, and then I will just switch on my system, and then I will do my business. At the end of a day, exactly at 10 o'clock, your lecture means it will sit. At 11 o'clock, it has to close means it will close. So that means it will automatically log into your online platform at the correct time and also log out at the end of a class. So it will send even notification. Suppose if the sessions are late, if you are starting 10 minutes late, it will even send you a notification that the SAR has not come on time. He has done after 10 minutes only, but then I have attended. So typically, now you see that, of course, this is not good, but is there a solution? But whether we like it or not, I know that one student has given me this link and see, sir, you see, how do you solve this problem and so on. Of course, now currently we are trying to solve this problem. Again, a small video, you can just watch it. You will be, surprised. So these are some advertisement I'm distributing. right? So what I have shown you is, yeah. Uh, so what we have shown you is, yeah, this is how the world is moving. So we cannot blame our student when such because this code is there in the open source. Anybody can download it and use it. So if that is the case, how are we going to ensure that we are going to solve this problem? So that means this looks like a kind of unsolved problem, but there are multiple solutions we have to look at, and we are looking at the problem in one specific angle, and then we would like to solve the problem. And similarly, you can also think, the other issue is the exam, right? Another very exciting problem is, you know that when you conduct your online exam, that a lot of students are misusing it. Maybe, they use internet, they use WhatsApp, and then they search the results and do cut and paste, or they chat with their friends in a group, and then they find the correct answer, and then they may be, presenting it and so on. And if you are asking them to write a descriptive question, then again, what they do is they will write the answers well in advance in a piece of paper, and then those the so-called anticipated questions, and then they may be uploading it. So that means in whatever way you want to do it, you cannot solve this problem. Is it something an unsolved problem? The answer is again no. In fact, there are a lot of solutions are there. Maybe I will just take a minute or two and finish off. And here, all you need to do is you have to build a tool which may be doing multiple things. All these tasks I can do it in parallel. Probably I have to design a new browser where the assessments are displayed in full screen and it cannot be minimized. So you need to write a code for the browser that cannot minimize your browser. And number two, the browser menu and toolbars option should be removed. Three, you prevent access to applications including your WhatsApp or screen sharing, virtual machine, remote desktop. For even print screen, you can disable. And next, copy paste, Control C, Control P, you disable. And right click menu, you disable. Function key, keyboard shortcuts, everything you need to disable. And then you know and assessments cannot be exited until a student is submitting it for grading. And so you need to create a browser with all these features, but all these features can be created in parallel. You need not do it one by one. And second is, when he is writing the exam, how do I prevent it? I can use a lot of new technologies. Of course, you can ask them to switch on the camera. Even if they are not switching on the camera, you can trigger from your browser software to switch on the camera. Just like you are seeing my camera, you can see my face. So from that face I can find out what is who is writing the exam, and then I can track your eyes, and then I can find, are you only concentrating on the screen, or you are moving here and there. In fact, we made some automotive application where a customer wanted to track the eyes while he is driving. And third is, you can also look at the emotions of a student. If he is very tense, what he will do is he may be afraid, or he want to copy and so on. If somebody he sees very happy, means he is knowing all the answers, so he will be writing it and so on. So when you couple all these three, again with this browser, it is very much possible that for you to find out to a certain extent whether a fellow is writing the online exam in a proper way or not. For your information, these kind of technologies to some extent are used when you write exams like GRE, TOEFL, etc. and so on. But they are pretty expensive. The problem is, how do I implement it at a low cost solution using my own resources? That is the the biggest question. Most of these questions, I mean the solutions which they are asking, they charge in thousands per candidate, which we cannot afford. If you are conducting a number of internal exams, quiz and term and so on, and if this fellows charge every time, you are going to pay a hefty amount. So what we need to look at is, you need to look at a low cost solution, right, which can be deployed in a scalable way for our needs. So that should be our motive. So when you talk of the design thinking, you need to look at from different angles, right? So the basic definition is giving you some guideline, but then you take each one of these keywords and make a deep dive, and then you will be able to solve many real-time problems. I think with this I will conclude. If there are I think I could cover only about 1/5 of my slides what I have. For want of time, I may be skipping the rest of the things. So if there are any doubts uh, or comments, you can feel free. I will try to answer if at all I can.
Thank you, sir. Thank you for sharing your wonderful experience and you're exploring your research project. It's a really amazing one. Now the session is open for the participant.
Good evening, sir. Gurpreet this side.
Yeah. Good evening, madam.
So you mentioned in your slides some ideation techniques like brainstorm. I could not take down the names of the others. If you could just elaborate, what are the tools, and are they free to use, or are they proprietary software?
Actually, to be frank, I don't know, madam, because I have not
Okay.
used. I have heard these tools names. I have put
Okay.
in my PPT, and maybe I can show this PPT. You can note it down if you
Yeah,
want.
please, sir. That would be really great. And the next question I have is, sir, you were talking about the NLP chatbot.
Mhm.
So, what programming language you use for to program that chatbot?
Yeah, it's a very interesting question. You can use any programming language, madam, but in general people use Java or Python or JavaScript, so it doesn't matter. So you can use whichever programming language you want. So in fact, when we are working with these kind of projects, you should not think of the which programming language or tool I will use and so on. So first one is you need to see in which you are conversant, and second is, if I build this tool and then if I ask my customer to buy this, is he ready to buy that one or not? So you need to look at from your angle and customer angle and decide what tools or programming languages you can use.
Thank you for that answer, sir. I totally agree with you that it's more about the problem rather than the programming
correct.
language. So thank you so
Correct.
much for that answer.
Thank you.
So thank you, Gurpreet ma'am, for your active participation.
Thank you so much, sir, for allowing us to ask questions, because I'm a I am an experiential learner. I can only learn while I talk and see and do.
It is interesting to see you, ma'am.
Yeah,
Thank you.
thank you so much.
So the other participant can ask the questions to our expert. He's available. And if you feel any difficulty, you can ask the question in the chat box.
Sir, here Dr. Nilesh Avte from GH Rajan calls up in Nagpur. Yes, sir. Your research work, I show your presentation is so nice work, sir, done by you and your team. So recently we also turned to some of the AI ML based projects by the Center of Excellence 3D Printing and Design in our college. Also, we are a part of BETIC system, so that's why we are working on most of the biomedical related projects.
Okay.
So our main intention is to, in our college, technical business incubation center also available. So we are promoting our student for enhancing, for creating such kinds of innovative solution. So your solution given to the society is so nice, sir.
Okay, thank you, sir. Actually, for want of time, I have not shown you some of the biomedical based projects we did. Maybe it comes, further down in the slide. But anyhow, I think, if you are good in one, right? If you know how to drive a two-wheeler confidently, you can easily drive a four-wheeler, and like that, it goes off. So
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
if you are good in one, you can easily get into.
Yes, sir. Because nowadays the AI/ML based technology mostly used in most of the automobile vehicles and another commercial vehicle also. Myself also working in vehicle architecture design.
Very good.
So we also considering your some points during the RTO projects. I see some points.
Okay.
So nice, sir. Nice.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Nilesh.
Okay, sir. No questions from the participant side. So I request Dr. K. Ganesan, sir, you can kindly give your contact details in the chat box, sir.
Yes, sir.
They can able to.
I can put the first slide where I have the details.
Okay, fine, sir, fine, sir.
I can even take a snapshot. And
Okay.
is it visible, sir? Is the screen is visible?
No, sir. We are not getting any slide.
Okay, sorry. The screen share got disabled.
Yes.
Yeah, I hope it is visible now.
Okay, now it is okay, sir.
I think, sir, Ganeshan, sir, I informed somebody asking one question. Like, this.
Link of softwares.
Okay.
Whether it is a brainstorming related software or some other thing. Anit Kumar, sir.
Sir, the ideation techniques, sir had mentioned on one slide.
Yeah, it is there, madam.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Brainstorm, Brainwright, worst possible idea, and Scamper.
So any more questions from the participant side? So, okay, thank you all. So thank you, sir, Dr. Ganesan, sir.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
And kind request to all the participants. So please kindly fill the feedback form, which is posted in the chat box. So don't leave the session without filling the feedback forms. It's mandatory. சொல்லுண்ணா